Is this the newest Voyager review podcast? It is not. Is it the one with the biggest names? No, but it is the best Voyager review podcast. It's Feature Please, a hateful voyage through the Delta Quadrant. My name is Joseph.
And I'm the best co-host, Peter.
You are the best co-host, Peter, but we are, of course, making reference to a new challenger that has arrived. And by challenger, I mean something so large that our tiny asses get curb stomped immediately, but the Delta Flyers, yeah?
Yeah, and I wouldn't even call it a challenger. Like, there's plenty of space in podcast universe for everybody and everything. And I think realistically for like Voyager, there's maybe 4 active podcasts. There's People versus Star Trek Voyager, which I enjoy. There's us.
Yeah.
I think the old Delta Flyer hung up its spurs back in like last April. And I don't know who else is really out there active else. So seeing Garrett Wang and Robert Duncan McNeil decide that they're going to throw their name in the hat is pretty exciting stuff, because a lot of what you and I sit here and just blindly conjecture on, hearing stuff straight from the horse's mouth, has been pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't given it a listen yet, but you and a number of our listeners did and reported back like potential, they got the standard podcast issues to work out. That is, get better mics, kind of get some patter going as far as their interactions with each other. Things that I think every single podcast ever made, takes a few episodes to bang out correctly, but that all of the insights that they had to offer, particularly when Robert Duncan McNeil had his opportunities to speak, were made for a good listen.
Yeah, absolutely. Normally I don't try to listen to other podcasts, so I don't want to like taint or whatever, but we're so much further ahead than they are. I don't feel bad about it. And I would say, obviously if you're a fan of Voyager, there's no reason not to listen to what some firsthand stories are. Hey, I don't know, is someone playing Mario Brothers behind you? So I'm hearing a lot of weird, like, jumpy whoops and bloops.
1 second. Hey, sweetie.
Yeah?
Peter can hear your Animal Crossing.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Might leave that in, though, because that's lived life right there. You're an Animal Crossing player, right?
My wife is, and I am happy that she has something she's happy about. So I'm actually gonna fucking hijack. I'm sure everybody at home is also playing fucking Animal Crossing too, because it's a phenomenon. There's these like NFC amiibo cards you can like tap to the console and like unlock characters. And for whatever reason, Nintendo doesn't sell these fucking things anymore. And it is a cutthroat secondary market. So like, I bought some NFC tags. I'm going to pirate amiibos with cell phone programming. I'm very excited about.
Yeah, no, I actually have a friend who did that back in the day with those things as well. Like, I think specifically for Zelda Breath of the Wild, like to get a bunch of power-ups for that when that came out. That was actually the first game I played on the Switch. But yeah, so ever since we got that, Stevie has essentially had full ownership of the Switch, which is fine by me because quarantining has done wonders for me getting through my Steam game collection.
Yeah, well, it's because you're not wiping butts and dealing with screaming kids. But anyways, Delta Flyers, it's really cool. I love having that firsthand discussion. There's a whole rabbit hole that they go down about. We've talked about it, the Starfleet tips, the sideburns. I didn't know those were prosthetic wigs.
Huh, really?
I figured that these guys just, they just cut their sideburns to look at it. And like, according to Garrett Wang, the only person who was able to grow sideburns thick enough, and I got pretty big sideburns, so maybe I take him for granted, but the only person on the cast that could grow the sideburns long enough to do it was Robert Picardo, and everybody else has to have these prosthetic silk woven wig sideburns get glued to their face. And it's just, if you enjoy a convention panel, you're gonna love listening to that show. Like, I don't think Robert Duncan McNeil is like anywhere near as like keener into it as Garrett Wang is. Like, McNeil is certainly there for the ride, the money ride. they were quick to monetize that. Within the first 3 minutes, it's like, hey, Patreon, coffee mugs, special paywall content, and it's like, you guys haven't even said the word Star Trek yet. Like, what the fuck? But
part of it, I think, is also that Garrett Wang's prior podcasting partner had passed away. That was
Ooh, yeah, you're
yes.
right. You're
So
right.
this is him trying to kind of get the train rolling again, and
Well, I'm glad he's not fully paywall, because that other one I did want to legitimately listen to it, but it's like I'm not gonna pay for a special, what the hell was it, Hulu subscription or whatever the fuck it was. So I'm really happy they got some public access content, and there is just fucking Star Trek production gold in there.
Speaking of Star Trek production gold,
Speaking of motherfucking gold,
what did we
wow.
what did we watch this
What
week, man?
did we watch? Because it wasn't fucking Star Trek Voyager. That's for goddamn sure. Did I watch a movie? Joe, did I watch Westworld, or was this Game of Thrones or something else out of 2020 that was that fucking mind-blowing excellent? Do you know how rare it is that I sit there and I watch a Voyager episode and I just say to myself, real time, I'm watching something great.
I'm glad to hear that I didn't oversell it in our close last week when I told you this is often considered the best Voyager episode.
If you're not ready to listen for an hour to me and Joe blow the fuck out of this episode on our knees, then go ahead and turn it off right now, because that's what
it's going to be, I'm going to tickle the balls. I'm going to get the whole shaft in.
If you have not watched season 5, episode 6, Timeless before, stop listening to this episode of V'ger Please right now and go on Netflix and watch it, because you don't want anything spoiled. Even with the bullshit Netflix spoiler capsules that we read every week, I
was actually really happy when you read it that there wasn't really a spoiler there, and I was like, oh, good. He might not know what he's about to see.
I mean, I'm sitting there white knuckle watching this thing, and I don't know if you're just Joe Schmo off the street and you don't really like Star Trek. I mean, you and I have ascended to a different level of like Trek
nerd,
right?
Valhalla. Yeah.
Even whatever I thought I knew about Star Trek before, like you and I putting a semi-professional effort of sitting there with a notebook, taking detailed notes, reading memory, alpha entries, talking about it for an hour every week, talking to other people on the trauma support group about it, and really living in the universe, living in this Berman era 90s Trek in the bigger picture, and how does this relate, and what time were they, filming First Contact, all this other shit. Like, if you didn't have all that, I don't know if you could go into this episode. And there's just stuff that looks absurd and it still looks silly, but because we've been living in the trenches for so long, and like the story behind all these pieces, like even though this is just a TV budget, this thing just came off as so epic in every way. Like there is nothing bad that I think I'm going to be able to say about this episode. And that is so incredibly rare for especially Voyager that it blows my fucking mind.
This is the 100th episode of Voyager, and from all of the information that was in the Memory Alpha, they kind of drove their effort to make something special. I thought it quite interesting that they directly decided to get some of their inspiration from one of the better characterizations of Harry Kim that you and I are big fans of, which was The Killing Game. It was just kind of like just a raw ass not giving a fuck anymore. They also kind of reflected on the idea of like that they made Harry Kim, who is, the least valuable player when it came to their cast members, the focus of their 100th episode. That surprised them that they did it and that it paid off. But, it's a big deal when a show gets to this point, because typically for other shows, Voyager is not going to be an example of it. But when you hit 100 episodes, that means you have enough episodes to get a syndication deal. So a lot of shows, they reach this and it's a big deal because everyone's getting paid forever, right? Like those syndication dollars are going to be coming in until doomsday. This is a network show, so that really wasn't the focus, but they put extra effort in and they got top quality material. Written by Brendan Braga and Joe Manowski, and directed by LaVar Burton, who finally got a solid hit in. Like, he has been the director behind some of Voyager's just most questionable / worst episodes.
I got a printout right here, because I'm going to tell you the episode title for this is going to be LaVar's Redemption. Let me go through the list here, and I haven't watched Deep Space Nine, so I'm going to leave that off. Next Generation, Second Chances, which was an excellent Thomas Riker episode, right?
Right.
The Pegasus. It's
Great
funny.
episode.
He's got like two of Riker's best episodes under his belt. Pegasus, also super excellent. And also an industrial accident episode, which I'm going to classify this one as not only time travel, but an industrial accident, which I do love. But then we get into Voyager, man. Ex post facto. The origin of Detective Tuvok. Fucking terrible.
The origin of the shitheads.
Yes.
Like, that was where the shit on your head makeup thing, that's where that was born.
Dreadnought, which is one of the terrible entries into the B'Elanna Torres evil rogue cyber baby mama. The Raven, which was a turd. And then bam, Timeless. And then we've got Live Fast and Prosper, Nightingale, Q2, which I know is going to be a dud, and then Homestead, whatever that is. So everything on here could be complete dog shit, because as long as he's got Timeless under his belt, LaVar has fucking knocked it out of the park. And there's one writing credit you failed to mention in this, Joe. It's not just Bran Braga and Joe Manowski.
Oh, yeah. It's Rick Berman.
Rick Berman. And what's the last thing Rick Berman touched? Because we made a big deal out of that.
It was Night, I believe he wrote. I think he had a credit on that. I'm checking. But I'm pretty sure it was...
I think it was Hope and Fears.
Hope and Fear. Yeah.
Which I also loved. So I don't know if anybody at any point ever realized that when and I don't know, maybe it's the fact that Rick Berman can smell a winner and he worms his way in there to get his name on it. Maybe Rick Berman's actually a phenomenal writer. And if that is the case, shame on him for not putting pen to paper for more of the stuff that he was so closely involved in. Because if this is what he is capable of, goddamn, if only every episode was half as good as this one.
I assure you that you will be a little... broken of that idea once we get to Enterprise, because he writes a lot of Enterprise, and I am the biggest defender of that fucking show on the planet, but let's just say there's a lot of misses. So whatever magic he had in 1998, though. But let's actually talk about the episode. We've blown it enough. Let's talk about it. We get a very cool opening because it's not telling you a whole lot to start. We get a beam down to a very icy planet. You've got two people. They look like they're in microwave suits. You know, they look like the cold weather gear. Looks like modern cold weather gear.
It was interesting to see the transporter effect against a pure white background. And I don't know when they really transition the transporter effect, but this is the first time I've really become aware that like there's this 2-pass scan that happens before like the glittery silhouettes come in, and it's different than TNG. I'm guessing this was a transporter effect that debuted maybe with Deep Space Nine, and I just never noticed it was different.
This feels like the effect that they had been using since at least then. I think it might have been that they used two different effects on that show because they had Cardassian transporters that they used a lot because it's the Cardassian space station. But yeah, that's definitely been the effect they've been using on Voyager since. But
so they're on this winter planet, which is just the same cave planet, but now they've like sprayed snow all over it, and it looks so shitty. But at the same time, I love it. I don't know why, but it just really struck me. Like again, I had this running thought the entire episode. Like if I was just someone who walked in and was looking at like how hokey and crappy would this scene look, I loved it. And then I'm thinking in my head, like, if this did have Game of Thrones budget and they were able to like put two guys on the side of a huge ice cliff, like this could have been some really cool stuff, or, you know, I should say cooler than it actually was.
The scene passes with very little dialogue. You just see these two guys kind of trekking through the ice. They arrive at some kind of marker metal in the ground that they reveal kind of using their hand, put some technological gizmo into that area, and tap a comm badge. Comm badge looks a little different. We'll get a better view of it later.
Immediately, man. I saw that thing. I was like, oh, fuck. That's the All Good Things comm badge. We're in the future. What the hell is going on? And I got real excited immediately.
And we get a pull out of the camera, which was just a fantastic effect. You see the two guys standing on what looks like a glacier, and under the ice, under the translucent ice, you see the clear image of Voyager's sausage
Section.
section. No, that's a Tuvok
Foreign
holiday
parody.
program. A saucer section with the with its registry number and name visible, and Voyager is trapped under this ice.
The stakes right off the jump. I knew this was going to be an episode where Harry Kim screwed something up, and I figured it'd be a traditional episode where we get a bunch of exposition, and then there's a problem down the road, and they got to fly away from a wormhole or a binary star or some bullshit to start the episode in All Good Things era, which I believe is like 2395-ish. To start in the future with Voyager dead in the ice, like, just sent chills down my spine. I was like, oh fuck, this is gonna be good.
The two of these figures have a female compatriot, and beam
Fuck buddy is the word you're looking for.
Later on we'll find out fangirl that is serving as fuck buddy, and they get beamed inside the ship that is trapped in the glacier. We find out now, only after the teaser, and is that this is Harry Kim and Chakotay. And they definitely didn't, quote, age them really. They just kind of put some shit in their hair. And in Harry Kim's case, gave him the, what I would call the COVID cut. You know, your hair is just kind of a little too long because you don't give a fuck anymore.
Yeah.
They are alive and in the ship, but clearly some kind of disaster has occurred. Might as well say it now. This is probably the best Garrett Wang ever does, as far as an actor on Voyager. He was good in the shoot. He was good at some other times, but the way he was able to play the clear difference between this older Harry Kim that is obviously battered by time and the weight that he carries, and plucky young Ensign Kim, and how they contrast was so cool. He did a really good job carrying it, and you see that from the beginning here as he activates one of the LCARS panels and is just kind of like fatalistically talking about how fucked the ship is, and you can tell the demeanor difference immediately.
Speaking to the way he carries himself, the look on his face, he's kind of got like this 1,000-yard stare. I got some real Lon Suter vibes off of him. This is a guy who has major demons, who does not care what other people think. He knows what he wants to do, and he is going to do it with as little social lubrication as possible. He does a great job portraying fucked up. I think in the end there's a little argument there's some shouting between him and Robert Picardo, and Picardo outacts him pretty hard. They're like, his outburst was a little subpar, but yes, I agree. The entire rest of this episode, he's on point.
Oh yeah, in that scene, Robert Picardo crushes it. Robert Picardo's best is always going to be better than Garrett Wang's best, but I still want to respect Garrett Wang's best as being legitimate.
I mean, it's great. And along with Garrett Wang being damaged, the ship's interiors. We talk, it's not every day that you see the level of destruction that they visit in the ship. I think the only other time we've seen anything that rivals the amount of mess that they make in the interior of the ship is Year of Hell, where they've just got broken glass and holes in the wall. They went crazy with the snow machine. They covered all these hallways. The bridge is just complete. I don't know who had to clean up the mess they made on this, but that guy got some fucking overtime, and he should have got a cookie in the process, because they went to unprecedented levels to deep freeze the ship.
Yeah, they definitely got the fake snow machine working overtime on here. And Chakotay heads to the bridge, and Kim goes to sickbay. They clearly want to get the EMH. That's clearly stated. Chakotay gets to the bridge, and that's when we start getting some really cool, just camera pan cutaways of just everyone on the ship is dead. Let's be clear, body, 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 body. And then we get to the bridge, and we see Tom dead, and then we pan over, and Chakotay has got his flashlight now on the very dead Catherine Janeway. So they're leaving no stone unturned.
As dead as she might be, her hair still looks excellent.
I mean,
It is
she still went
frozen
to
in time.
makeup that day.
It is frozen in time. Perfect. These camera pans you're talking about. When we talk about LaVar Burton in this, it's not like he just got a good script and he gets to skate by and us saying this was a terrific episode and great job, LaVar Burton, just because, this time they didn't fuck you with a complete turd like ex post facto or one of these other turkeys. Like, he puts some legit heavy lifting into directorial style. All of the CG camera work, positioning on that looks cool, sure, but like the physical camera movements that we'll see in every scene kill it. A lot of the transitions where we move between the future, current whatever year star date, and then the 2390s, there's some really good fake out shots that happen. There's a pad scene later on that blew me up.
Yeah, he does a good job with transitions and camera placement, and he gets away with it for this because this is such a different, like, the ship's fucked up. This is kind of a really like bizarre situation, and so shooting it differently kind of helps convey that, if that makes sense. Like, the way they place the camera on all their bridge shots was unlike you ever see, and so it immediately is like makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah,
in a way.
Yeah. There is some conversation before they split up where Harry's doing a diagnostic report on the ship, and they comment that decks, what is it,
9 through 14 are now 10. Yeah.
Are now 10. That Chakotay mentions that they hit the planet going at least full impulse and that it probably killed everybody on impact. I guess the only thing you can really cite in this episode is like, that's a little like, so like full impulse is basically warp 1, right?
Well, yeah, it's almost light speed, approaching light speed.
So yeah, like everybody on the ship from that impact probably should have just been liquefied into like bloodstains in the carpeting, but I get it. You need the effect there. And I was like, okay, well, maybe they're not going to get too gory in this episode. Like, that's the one. And normally Voyager will go there. Voyager will get very gory comparatively to the other Star Treks. But my thoughts on that were quickly dashed when later in the episode, the Doctor's playing with Kevin's brain.
Yeah.
So I think they could have had a couple crushed skulls, but I get it. It is very clear, and props to Robert Beltran too. Like, the emotional pain you see Chakotay going through as he is on the bridge, seeing his friends and family dead all over the place. Like, he wears that grief on his sleeve like a real champ. And I like that both him and Wang carry the sense of urgency. Like, this is not a memorial service. This is not a trip down memory lane. It is very painful for them to be there. They're there for specific reasons. They don't want to dawdle. They want to get in, get out, and they portray that with body language as well as dialogue in a perfect way.
They go to that is to say, Chakotay is on the bridge to actually find 7 of 9. They cut over to a deceased 7 of 9 behind a console. Of course, Jerry Ryan's still looking great even while being a corpse. And Harry Kim gets to sick bay and is able to revive the Doctor's program and slap the mobile emitter on him as quickly as possible. That's where we get a little bit more of the dialogue where Harry is not giving any fucks, is clearly a different person, does not want to be called Ensign, makes that clear, just goes by Harry. And the Doctor is like, hey, what the fuck is going on? And they don't really feel like they got time to explain. They want to get the fuck out of there. But Harry and Chakotay make it clear that their intention is to, as they say, change history. And that's actually when they first cut over to what you would call, I guess, the current day, the 2375. And we see our first flashback, quote unquote.
Yeah, when Chakotay rolls in and says, yeah, I'll tell you what happened. Everybody's dead and we're here to fix it. Like, the brazen disregard for the temporal directive and everything else, and just seeing Chakotay has fallen back and, like, you can feel the Maquis in him, right? Like, I don't know what the fuck's happened, but I know changing history is bad. And I see that look in his eye and it's like, all right, Chakotay's back in rebel mode. Harry's got some fucking baggage. Like, these are not the characters we're used to. These are some guys who've gone through some shit. And I don't think we've ever really had a buddy pairing of Chakotay and Kim before, but like,
No.
it worked really well, especially in this environment. And having the doctor there as like the confused straight man, you know, the guy playing it straight, and it like was really cool too. And as soon as Chakotay's like lays the plan on the table, I'm like, all right, this is going to be a great episode. I'm in 100%, and I can't wait to see what happens. When we transition into the post credit scene, it's like this. At first, I think they're like on a nightclub, and what they're doing is the camera's panning up on an augmented warp core that's got a bunch of neon lights on it, and we're getting this slow motion Donnie Darko shot where the camera pans up the warp core. You see everybody standing around celebrating like it's New Year's Eve. Confetti's in the air, everybody's laughing and clapping, and you got B'Elanna Torres walking in slow motion to bust this bottle of champagne on the new warp core. And it is one of the coolest Star Trek shots I've seen. Like, again, tipping my hat to LaVar Burton. This is just a magic moment. You can feel the excitement, and already things are starting to click. Like, this is such a great setup for what's going to be a terrible disaster. I love it.
Yeah, he's good at building a sense of dread, even though you know what happened, which is hard to pull off. The point of the first flashback scene is to set up the explanation to the audience / explanation to the doctor of what happened, and that is, well, Voyager's finally done the thing that we keep complaining that they never do. And that is take some of this fabulous fucking technology that they seem to encounter on the semi-regular and actually try to use it for themselves. And Arcturus had essentially gifted onto them the idea of using a, quote, quantum slipstream drive, which is a new super warp drive that they don't really explain how it's different than folding space and using traditional warp drive, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It's super warp, and using quantum slipstream drive is guaranteed to make the ship go much faster and get them back to the Alpha Quadrant in fact, no time at all comparatively. And they have finally tried to use it. They have adapted their own systems. They've used Borg technology. They've used apparently a special alloy that they were able to synthesize on the ship, and they made their own.
Your mention of Arcturus as being the progenitor of the slipstream technology, I wonder if the fact that Rick Berman was involved in both this episode and Hopes and Fears, like that's why they dove back to that particular piece of technology to found this disaster on.
Yeah, I mean, all three of these guys wrote that episode. So all three of them were involved on that. So it could very well be they're like, oh yeah, we could use this.
The party's pretty cool. I was disappointed that I did not catch any shots of Smoldering Catcher Guy, aka Lieutenant Ayala. We do get treated to what I'm going to head and call right now the worst Neelix outfit of all time. He looked like he skinned several clowns to make this outfit. It is just the fucking worst, man. Like, Janeway gives a little speech where she lays out in very clear language that it has been 4 years, 2 months, and 11 days since the caretaker incident stranded. I'm sorry, since Catherine Janeway stranded Voyager in the Delta Quadrant. That I don't know if that math really lines up. I mean, we're in season 5, but I guess we're kind of still at the closer to the beginning.
We're at the beginning of season 5. Time checks out.
Yeah, it's true. You know, you did point out a lot of the episodes would have been running less than 2 weeks apart from each other. So seasons don't necessarily translate into years. But now we can all set our watches. It's been 4 years since they've been dealing with this stuff. Everybody's very excited about this. Neelix in his ugly clown outfit gifts B'Elanna with a frozen killer hornet or something. I don't know.
I mean, it's clearly his Talaxian beekeeper outfit or something, man. Like, it has to be seen to be believed. It's like got these like yellow like splat. It looks like camouflage if you're trying to camouflage yourself in a bucket of piss and poop, you know?
Yeah.
It's just the colors are bad, the patterning is bad, and gives B'Elanna a giant stuffed killer hornet.
Yeah, and he's like, it's good luck on Talaxian ships. If one of these things sneaks on it, it's a good luck token. Everybody should have known then, right then and there, that Neelix the Saboteur was up to doing something. We've joked before that Neelix is there to cause problems and undermine the crew for the lulls. He's poisoned the ship with cheese. He's been involved in several other very large accidents. That might account why like they cannot find the right harmonic whatever to like ride the slipstream. I bet you that's that fucking bug. That was the missing piece that Harry never saw. That's why they could never do this thing perfect.
We do get we get our quick introduction to Drunk 7 of 9.
Well, before that too, like Tuvok throws a line out and he's like basically shits on Neelix's contribution. I'm like, do you think that Vulcans do not value the cultural values of other people? Like that's some pretty ice cold shit he threw at him.
It goes to the Tuvok is exasperated by Neelix canon. That's like defines the relationship between the two of them. So I get it, but yeah, I guess we have to remember that Tuvok's a murder Vulcan.
Mm-hmm.
Not a thinking Vulcan.
True.
So he doesn't have time for people's bullshit.
Mm-hmm. And like you pointed out, yes, 7 of 9 is drunk, and I didn't think I was going to like seeing her drunk, but the way she plays it off with like the drunken acknowledgement that the doctor is her mentor and like embrace, I think it felt very genuine. And it's so hard to see people like scripted drunk, but this worked out great and I loved it.
Yeah, it's a nice preview for next week, because next week is a very 7 of 9 focused episode, and it relies entirely on Jerry Ryan's ability to just go a whole bunch of different places.
Is that how they're gonna, instead of every episode being about 7 of 9 trying to find her humanity, like it's now going to be 7 of 9 has a drinking problem and she's just always drunk, in every episode's working around her trying to become a high functioning drunk.
Marked improvement. We'll have to send that one back in time through interplexing beacons.
The one person that you would think would really be ready to kick back and yuck it up and enjoy a party is not. It's Tom Paris, who like you were talking before about Tom doing some push-ups and some sit-ups. I think he looks even better in this episode than he did back in that the fucking Delta Flyer space
Extreme Risk. Yeah.
He's looking great in this. Although I guess it kind of makes sense. Like, we know Tom doesn't necessarily want to get home. We know that home isn't a warm place to Tom. Tom doesn't care about his dad. Tom doesn't want to go back to being the convict. Tom likes the growth opportunities he's had. So while everybody else is boozing over by the big nuclear warp engine, he's running simulations and he does not like what he sees. And again, instead of going to his hot rod, badass super engineer girlfriend and saying, hey, I think there's an issue with the warp drive that you're the primary caretaker of, he's like, hey, Harry, look what I found. Everybody's going to die.
So he refers to it as that they might have built an Edsel, which I always thought was such a cool reference. The Edsel, my grandfather, this is how I know this, my grandfather used to have a car dealership. It was one of the many businesses he owned through his life. And so I heard about the Edsel, and he was a huge fan of the car personally, because it was such a technologically innovative car. It had a lot of features that were definitely unique for the time. It had like this cool steering wheel and like all these gizmos inside. But it wasn't well put together, and it didn't really like succeed commercially, and its quality level wasn't super high. So I kind of got what he meant of like they built this technological terror, but didn't build it correctly. And as a consequence, there's a fatal phase variance in the slipstream, and they go to test it in the holodeck, and sure enough, like this fatal flaw that they build into this is going to get them all killed.
I like the simulations they're running. Like, I like seeing the bridge shaking and, the computer telling you that the world is falling apart, and like this kind of blasé look on Tom and Harry. Like, it's a striking contrast to normally, you know, when shit's falling apart. It's like, oh god, like somebody like, okay, this again. And it's a good fake out because you're like, oh, okay, they just ran the thing in the simulation and it's not good. There's a problem. And Harry's like, well, let's try it this way. And that's when Tom lays on the line, like, look, dude, this is the 26th time we've run it. It's the 26th time we've blown up and everybody's dead. Like, take the facts as they are. This shit's fucked.
They come up with a backup plan and end up going back to the party, which is now no longer a party, and talk to the senior staff in the engineering room, kind of in a casual, informal setting, which is different, right? They don't go to the briefing room; they stay in the deflated party setting, which I thought was neat. And they talk about, you know, the failure of all of these simulations. You know, they tell like B'Elanna and Seven of Nine when they interject, like, hey, if you want to go check it out, go to the holodeck, do it yourself. Like this is a real problem. And to also the writer's credit, they made sure to throw in the dialogue here a reason for urgency, in that apparently the unobtainium that they synthesized to make this thing apparently has a decay rate that makes it so they can't use it for very long. So they have to get going on using it, or they will lose essentially their only chance of being able to utilize the technology effectively, which I thought, good. Thank you for making sure you did that.
One throwaway line, that's all. Why are we risking 5 bridge crew members' life to get a fucking probe that does not matter back in the Delta? Like that's all it takes, is just set realistic stakes that make me understand character motivations. I was very aware that this was a really big conversation to have. Like the whole ship just had a fucking party, and the 11th hour before this launch, your convict fucking helmsman's like, yeah, listen, this warp thing's all fucked up and we shouldn't do it like that. This is a big conversation to have in a very public place on a gossipy ship. There's an outburst by Kim that feels very good. And I thought it was going to be B'Elanna leading the charge on, like, you know, we just put our blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. You can't pull the plug last minute. But it's Harry that gets up in Janeway's face. And you mentioned before, God, what was the one where Harry grows a ball sack?
It was
the
demon
planet.
Demon, yeah.
Demon, like, he stands up and really holds his ground and kind of challenges some of the other senior staff members and gets his opinion out there. And I'd say he takes it to the next level here with Janeway. He really hard sells and says, this is our chance. I didn't work as hard as I did on this just for us to throw it away. And Janeway is uncharacteristically risk willing in this episode, I'd say, and it'll shine in some later scenes, but she seems kind of like teetering on like, well, what should we do? And that's when Tom's like, well, we've got a plan B.
I do really like what this sets up performance wise. In prior episodes, we were introduced to the idea of Janeway's significant personal depression and guilt when it comes to why they're stuck here in the first place, right? Probably presenting a reason why she would let Harry kind of get a little close to the line on acceptable behavior with defending doing this. Like, she feels it too. That's Janeway wants to get home. She wants to get everyone home. This is a clear chance to do so. She wants to take it, and they've
squandered opportunities numerous times in the past.
And then, of course, with Harry, this is setting up the key issue in the episode, which is his enthusiasm and go-get-em attitude and convincing everybody to take this risk with him gets everyone but him and Chakotay killed.
Jump back to Eye of the Needle. The cheerleaders of we are going to get home. You pointed it out then. It was Janeway and it was Harry Kim that were at the forefront of, yay, we're going home. I'm so excited. Everything's great. What could go wrong?
And certainly season 5 has taken us down a darker path with everybody. And this is essentially Harry Kim's time in the barrel. And it works really well here because we get to see the contrast of Harry Kim doing the Harry Kim thing, which is the idealistic new guy in space trying to like rally everyone around like doing it, and then we get to see the consequences of that when it goes wrong, like the worst way wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And it contrasted so well later on. They
You
end
had
up
well, before you got out of the engineering scene, I think the only person who really offers significant pushback is Tuvok, who is, you know, the classic party pooper. And even Tuvok doesn't really, nobody really puts a hard foot down and says, listen, this is too dangerous. Scrub the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really only Chakotay who voices significant concerns, but he doesn't do it there. He does it at dinner with Janeway later, where apparently Janeway has replicated a home recipe or something, and she lets him know, like, I've made the call, we're going to do this, because the backup plan is that the Delta Flyer is going to be in front of Voyager and essentially kind of ride the rapids in front of Voyager and be able to send telemetry back that allow them to correct on the fly. And while they don't say, I guess the implication is that the Delta Flyer being smaller is less impacted by the phase variance, and so it can ride ahead, let Voyager know what's about to happen so it can adjust itself. But there's only going to be a few seconds for them to have that interaction as it's necessary to make changes.
I call this scene the return of our old friend Unilateral Kathy. Kerry gave her the plan that you just laid out about sending out an advanced ship to give real time data so they can do those course corrections. And as Chakotay comes into this candlelit dinner in Janeway's quarters, she's like, yeah, I made my decision. And I could tell like Chakotay was hoping there would be some discussion about it, but he's seen Unilateral Kathy before and he knows what happens when she makes up her mind. It's, you know, they write Janeway so many different ways, and I can sit here and say, like, this is not the same person that we dealt with back in the Omega particle. Was that episode called the Omega
Directive? Yeah.
Omega Directive, right? There was a opportunity for Voyager to capitalize on unlimited power and crazy hyperscience, but this conservative Starfleet captain, and she even lays a line like, you can't put the genie back in the bottle, like, you know, this is too much risk, we can't, blah blah blah, shut it all down. And then you've seen Catherine Janeway, who makes wild, risky decisions like working with the Borg, and some of the other times she's rolled the dice. And this is that one. This is Unilateral Kathy. This is the Kathy who is not maybe thinking straight. And the set dressing I felt was very important. This, you played StarCraft, right?
Yes.
This candle lit with the heavy classical music playing in the background and the rich, lavish food on the table. Like, it felt like that conversation between Stukov and the admiral that was sent out from Earth to go put the Caprolo sector under the boot.
Under Earth's control. Yeah.
There's a vibe of insanity in that cabin. It's got tinges of like Hunt for Red October. Like, there's some real atmosphere, and it encapsulates Janeway's decision-making process.
They come to the conclusion they're going to do it. Chakotay is trepidatious of like, listen, I'm not saying this can't work, but if you showed this to any Starfleet engineers, they'd say you're a fucking lunatic for trying this. It's dangerous. And we all know it's dangerous. But the allure of, yeah, but this is a calculated risk that could get literally us home tomorrow, so we're going to do it.
I like that. You know, I talked before about the transitions are really good in this episode between future to past. Like, he's got the pad with all the math on it and he lays it on the table. And when the end of like her base, I don't say she doesn't bully. Like, he knows what he's going into is dangerous. And he makes a choice that he's going to let it happen. And he's going to roll the dice right along with Janeway. And as they go back on that pad, it shifts over to the same pad 25 years in the future. Was it 25 or 15 years?
15.
15 years in the future. Now laying on a frozen table, frostbitten on the screen, and obviously clearly foreshadowing that there's some real shit that's going to go down. It's a really cool camera trick, and again, LaVar Burton A+.
The next scene's back in the future, and it's actually, I think, the first scene we've ever seen Delta Flyer's lower level.
Mm-hmm.
So Delta Flyer's got kind of like this cool lab / science bay / equipment stowage area that I think was pretty well designed.
Yeah.
And they're catching the Doctor up on what happened, and that, they did the slipstream flight and shit went wrong. And this is where we get a lot of the great content with Harry Kim starting to roll, where he explains, like, yeah, I got everyone killed. I sent them the wrong telemetry change, and we made it back, and everyone else died. And that's a fucking problem, and we're not okay with that. They make it clear also that this is not legal. They have come back to break the temporal prime directive, and they have, to do that, a plan that involves using 7 of 9 as their vector. They are going to communicate correct telemetry to 7 of 9 in the past by basically tuning into her Borg radio frequency. And they're going to accomplish this temporal communication using something they stole, which is a Borg temporal communicator, which they bust out of like a sweet red case that's like classified written on it and shit.
Yeah, with the future Starfleet
symbol on it too,
which was really cool. There were so many times that I paused not to just write notes, but like rewinds. I rewound portions of this episode more than probably I've rewound the rest of the series combined, because they lay so much good background information in, like, casually through conversation. And I'm like sitting there, I'm like, as often happens with good episodes of Voyager, I start asking these questions like, what, they just let Chakotay keep the fucking Delta Flyer, like, this and that. And as he lays out, like, yeah, we are bad guys now. We are the most wanted people in the Federation, and Johnny Law is coming for us. And this all comes after, like, they explain what happened. The Doctor's like, wow, geez, thanks for coming back and finding me. I would have sucked if I was just buried under the ice forever. And they're like, yeah, we don't really care about you. We need you to do operations on 7 of 9's brain. And that disregard for the EMH as a person really kind of felt like the Marines' treatment of Bishop in Aliens. And I liked it. I thought it felt really cool. It's everything's good, man. The whole way through, I'm just eating all this stuff up.
Yeah, they don't treat him with disrespect so much as, listen, like, this isn't about you. This is about fixing this problem, and you're a piece of that. And so are they. Like, they treat themselves as disposable, like themselves. Like, I don't think it was disrespect for the Doctor's personhood so much as that's not the fucking point. The point here is we have to fix it. Yeah, that's not what we're here to fucking do. It's to get the job done. Now, to go take apart 7 of 9's head.
Listen, you already killed her son and pulled your fucking hollow emitter out of his brain. Go pull her brain out of her brain. There is also a really cool parallel here, obviously, to Living Witness. And it's like, every time you turn around anymore, it's like the Doctor being woken up in some terrible dystopian future where shit's fucked and all of his friends are dead.
So a lady enters named Tessa, who was the lady who was the communication voice earlier. She's a human lady that Harry Kim decides to just make sure everyone understands is absolutely having sex with Chakotay.
It's rare to hear them in Star Trek say these people are having sex. Like they're intimate, this and that. Like Harry just being like, who she? Oh, they're having sex. Make no mistake.
No, they fucking. Yeah, that's what's up.
They're having sex. Point blank.
She basically explains she's a Voyager fangirl. Like, she's always been into Voyager, and then we know Robert Beltran fucks. We learned that a couple weeks ago, and she's got a fuck buddy / compadre in crime.
Here's what you're getting. You're getting the dark future alternatives to two characters. You have the young, chipper, go-getter Ensign Kim in the past, and in the future you have a person who carries a terrible guilt because they were not good enough and his friends died, and it has basically turned Harry into Lon Suitor. In the past, you have nice, easygoing Coopte who often falls for anything anybody tries to sell him on a sob story. In the future, you have reverse Coopte who uses his own sob story to suck people into their deaths. Think about what they're doing. Like, everybody's well aware.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Even at the end, when like the captain of the USS Challenger is like, listen, dude, I know you're about to fuck up the timeline, and in the process, potentially kill everybody. And when I say kill everybody, I mean rewrite the time where decisions were never made, things never played out. You're going to unwrite my reality. You guys fucked up. 150 people paid the price. 148 people paid the price. But you're small in the overall scope of things. You're going to do so much irreconcilable damage to this timeline. And reverse Coopte is like, yeah, but it's my crew. I got to try and do it. I'm sure you can understand. They're like, well, yeah, I guess we can understand. And even though we're in a galaxy class and you're in a little bullshit shuttle, you're somehow going to survive long enough to do massive amounts of damage. This lady who he has co-opted, Tessa, I think had it been a 2-part episode like was banded about, or I think if this was actually going to be a feature-length movie like it was potentially talked about, I think there would have been a B story here behind her. Like, she doesn't really fit. And I kept waiting for there to be a hidden agenda that she was going to play, especially when like they got onto the bridge, that she was some sort of like, that she was there for her own thing she wanted. She wanted explosive warp plasma or some sort of like weird terrorist agenda, and she needed access to a Federation starship, and she found out about these two goofs on a suicide mission, and that she was in there to like to screw them over and steal. That doesn't end up manifesting, but she's just in love with Chakotay to the point where she is suicidal and willing to go along with him to the end until he flips a switch and undoes the past 15 years, and all of her actions mean nothing.
I want to return to the idea for a second about this being a 2-parter / movie. Part of me kind of wishes it was. This was such a high quality episode that like expanding some of the pieces that doesn't develop well, like Tessa, there's potential for that, obviously. But I think this actually works best as just a 1 episode, like, shot. I think like when I think back to Year of Hell, which is probably the next best Voyager installments, the 2-part kind of factor in there, I don't think helped it very much. I don't think it being a 2-parter assisted that storyline. Like, all of the good content when it came to the villain came in part 2 anyway. So really all you would have missed is some of the padding and background as to what happened, and they could have compressed that a little bit more cleanly anyway. Sometimes brevity is okay.
Yeah.
And the fact that they just did this as an episode in the middle of the season, and it was the 100th episode, but there wasn't a 2-parter, wasn't a feature film, wasn't like a season finale, none of that. It was just, here's a quality episode of Star Trek, here's a really well-told story in 48 minutes, got them. Like, I don't want to undervalue that is also great.
The pacing is excellent, and I want to say, like, they go so fast and so hard, they don't give you a chance to breathe. But that's kind of the beauty of the episode, is there are cutbacks and you have a chance to like collect yourself, but it still keeps moving at an engaging pace where it keeps you on the edge of the seat.
I don't need to see Harry Kim go to the party he describes or go on deep space missions trying to find Voyager. His 2 minutes explaining those things is just as effective, you know?
And going back to Year of Hell, how interesting is it that Chakotay, who had kind of sided with what the hell was Space
Boddicker.
Space Boddicker. What Krenin? What the hell is it?
The Krenin is the I forget the character's name. The Krenin was the
some
the name
derogatory
of the
term for like
Space Boddicker.
So Space Boddicker, he kind of sided with him, like, yeah, you can change key events in history to reshape the future, and again, he kind of reprises that same mindset. And this is like, yeah, man, we can totally just go back and send a little message back in time, and all of a sudden, in our mind, fix what is a broken timeline.
We do get an interesting Chakotay scene that he's on Voyager. They're just trying to get some sensor logs so they can modulate this message home. And he hears Janeway's log, and he gets a little bit winsome about what happened and has some doubt of like, well, maybe I shouldn't do this because, that means I won't meet you. And Tessa's really function in the story is basically to have this scene, which is to ease Chakotay's doubts about what he's doing and remind him, like, no, it's okay. This is the mistake you were a part of, and you need to fix it. And this is where your heart is, and that's all right.
I love this bridge scene. I love how quiet everything is. The bridge is always so noisy with background ambient sound, and for it to be so quiet you can hear a pin drop and you can hear their voices echoing off the walls really sells this cold tomb that the bridge has become. When he sits down in the chair and you see him like rubbing the armrests, and you can see the guilt washing over him, and like, the last time I sat in this chair everyone was alive, and like you can see how much the redemption of being commander on Voyager meant to him, and how bad it kind of broke him when that was all taken away. Really good. This is where I was expecting Tessa to like pull a phaser on him and like kill him, or some shenanigans to go down, but instead, like I said, she seems like she's kind of suicidal. Like, your heart's always been here. Go ahead and unwrite the lives of the entire Alpha Quadrant over the past 15 years. And we're not looking at this in the big picture, but I wonder if it crosses Chakotay's mind. Like, Janeway was crazy. Janeway condemned billions and billions of people to die by siding with the Borg. Like, if we do go back and save their lives, like, how many other, and that's something we'll have to pay attention to, is like post Timeless, like, how many more people does Janeway really fuck over? Like, is it a bad thing that everybody on Voyager died? Probably not. I don't know.
Damage is done, man. All of Arcturus' people were already assimilated.
I think there's still a lot more damage for Janeway to wreak on the Delta Quadrant between season 5, episode 6, and wherever the hell season 7 ends.
They cut back to the Delta Flyer. We get a tease to the end, which is Harry recording a message. We see only the end of it. And he goes to work with the doctor, who now has 7 of 9's brain in his hands, as we noted earlier. It's my favorite scene for Kim for the episode is here, where he's talking about, we got a great party, Andy-Mandy fireworks. There's a Vulcan's children's choir. I had admirals saying they wanted me to marry their daughter. There was great speeches. We all got medals. And, the doctor quips, well, hey, at least you weren't buried under ice. He's like trying to joke. And just the look that Harry Kim gives him, he like just turns around, just like stares daggers at him, be like, I wish I was dead. How many times did I want to be dead? Having to deal with the guilt of everyone is dead but me, and I got them killed. Just great scene where he tells the story of how they got to this point, that Starfleet gave up after a while, but they didn't. And then they decided to quit Starfleet and put their plan in motion to hijack the Delta Flyer and then steal the salvaged temporal communicator to do this.
It was this scene especially that gave me the feeling that like Carrie Kim had these shades of Lon Suitor damage going on. To 7 of 9's brain, I thought this was a really cool prop, and I never really realized that like so much of 7 had been removed and replaced by Borg parts, and she's just a super hot chick in a skin tight suit with some doodads glued on her face. Like the part that like goes around the border of her left eye, like that's not stuck to the skin, that's sticking out of her skin, and that her eyeball, and it looks like the entire left hemisphere of her brain is like this big copper brainy loby thing. And it's interesting that it's her left side, because if you're left brain, you're like more methodical and logical, right? So it's cool that it's her left hemisphere that is robotic and has driven her to such methodical limits.
Oh, that's a really good point about the left brain thing. Yeah, it's a cool idea that they're giving you an insight to like how much of 7 of 9 is still metal.
That's my BA in psychology paying for itself, by the way.
Excellent. Well done. You finally got to use it here on a Star Trek podcast that a couple hundred people might listen to.
I would like my own Vulcan's Children Choir to celebrate that. I thought that was the other cool thing that Harry mentioned that they got for their triumphant return home.
There is a good moment where I think it reinforces that they respect the Doctor, where they get intercepted by a Starfleet vessel. Harry offers actually the Doctor, like, I'll take you offline because if you're a friend and if you don't want to be involved in this, I'm not going to make you be involved. And he's like, no, I'm going to help you do this. Are you fucking kidding me? I am totally ready to commit all the crimes to get Voyager back, which tells you that the Doctor's autonomy is absolute. He can, in fact, assist criminals in breaking the temporal prime directive if he wants to.
Yes. And I put that down that he is not hard. I mean, it makes sense that this limited application Band-Aid wouldn't have like a higher ethical structure. Like, here's all these other Starfleet rules you must never break. It's like you're there to like keep people from dying until they turn you off 15 minutes later. Not like you're ever going to be put in some sort of Back to the Future quantum time stream dilemma where you're gonna have to like make decisions and we need you to toe the company line on it. We've already seen that the Doctor is capable of committing genocide, literal genocide, when they go to the Napoleon Dynamite psychic vampire planet.
Yes.
And he's ready to like nuke the site from orbit. So yeah, him being down for like some time bandit shit totally makes sense. There is a plus fake out, and they do it a couple times. Like they switch back over, I think, to the past, and like Harry and Chakotay, they're ready to ride in front of us, get ready to hit the slipstream, and you see the Delta Flyer, and then they pan the camera, and you think what you're supposed to see is going to be Voyager. They're ready to go in, and you get hit with the fucking Enterprise, and it is so awesome and jarring. And it's not the Enterprise; it's a USS Challenger. It's a Galaxy class, but it's the fucking Enterprise.
Yeah. So classic Galaxy class starship forms up behind. Noted that it is the USS Challenger. They hail, and Chakotay decides, well, maybe I can sweet talk this guy and buy us some time. And of course, if you're going to have LaVar Burton direct your episode, then you might as well pay him a little extra and have Geordi LaForge show up.
Damn, it's weird. Man, that hit me. I did not expect that for a minute. I figured they were going to cut corners on this thing and just be like, oh, Starfleet's coming, but they're not going to get any screen time, and we got to work quick before they get here, and we don't want to put the special effects budgets into any sort of a firefight or whatever. Them to play a Galaxy class. I mean, it's been so long. Well, not that long, because we saw the Enterprise in Picard, and it felt great to see the D in that, but to see that silhouette in a classic TNG behind the aft nacelle shot, like, was so cool. And then for them to pull it up, and there's straight up motherfucking Captain LaForge chilling out in a First Contact's jumpsuit with the All Good Things comm badge mashup. Like, the only place they really cut corners there is like, I thought we were gonna get a nice Galaxy class bridge shot, but instead he's like chilling out what looks like a fucking bedroom.
Yeah, he's like in his quarters or something. Yeah, they definitely skimped on the background. At least it wasn't like a CG'd background like when they had Riker show up at the end of Picard.
I wanted to see, what do you see when Picard calls you from the Enterprise? Like, how much of the bridge do you ever get to see? Like, do you get to see the guy at tactical or like the first officer? Is that just a close up? But they cheated me, Joe. And yeah, it's just him talking. Like, what a lazy captain style. You're gonna deal with the guy who's the most dangerous, the most wanted fugitive in the fucking Federation, and you're dealing with that shit from your bedroom, about to get co-opted.
I will say though, like, they do a good job of LaVar Burton. I don't think he necessarily played his role again, except in Nemesis after this, but he does it. No, this Insurrection came after this too, because I think Insurrection was 99. But he does a great job of like, oh, that's Geordi. Like, that's how Geordi talks. It's got that Geordi sort of like, I get you, bro, kind of feel to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he gives like, here's the deal. Like, he's like, I get it, man. If I was in your position, I'd do what you're doing too. Like, my people mean everything to me. But you are a criminal, and I gotta stop you. Now, if
You're
you
a
just
double criminal. This is the second time Starfleet's had to hunt your ass down.
Now, if you just like kill your engines, come on board, we'll drop the charges. We'll all be cool. It's all cool, man. And they're like, nah, we gonna do this. And LaForge's like, you know what? Good luck.
Co-opted me.
I'm gonna still try and stop you, but I ain't gonna hate you for it.
Everybody watching this show knows damn well what a Galaxy class vessel can do to a shuttlecraft. I'm gonna pull so many punches, you're gonna think I'm species 8472.
So they at this point are cutting back aggressively between the past and the future, showing like the flight occurring with the slipstream and the problems that are happening, and that they try to correct the phase variance, and then there's an issue, and they are successful to get the temporal communication to actually work, and they send back in time through that node a correction to Seven, who puts it in, and unfortunately it doesn't work.
What is the episode of TNG with Frasier and the temporal loop they get caught in? Because you got some real shades of that here, and
I know what you're talking about. I forget the name of it, but the one where they reshoot the same scenes over and over and over again.
It's like one of the best. Shame on me for not Frasier.
I think that's a Frakes directed episode. It's also got Ensign Rowe in it too. I remember that.
Yeah. That's goddamn. Fuck me, I can't believe it. Cause and effect.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he gets this message beamed back. She catches it. Current day Harry Kim has already shit the bed in providing the wrong set of coordinates because the Talaxian fly has jinxed everything.
Of course.
They lose traditional communications between the Delta Flyer and the ship. They're kind of flying blind. Everybody's scared. And then 7-9's like, oh, hold on a second. Someone's hacking. Oh, wait, we got cheater codes. That must have came from the Delta Flyer. Let's use that. And I'm not watching the jogger at the bottom of the episode. I don't know how much time is left. I figure this is it. That they're going to do something, and the end result is going to be it knocks them out of the stream a little early, but they make an advancement. I'm not expecting to watch them sink the special effects budget into crash landing Voyager on the same planet where it landed the first time. And
it's a great effect sequence too. They do a good job.
It, by 2020 standards, it looks like junk. I mean, it's not Voyager landing on their own terms. What was the fucking first? The 37s. It's not like 37's bad. It's bad, but it's not 37's bad. But again, we know we're so deep in the trenches in this. Like, I don't even see the CG. It's like all I see is Voyager in this white knuckle race to the bottom and slamming on this planet. And it's just fucking awesome watching this. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm surprised that they're actually killing everybody. I don't know how much time's left in the episode. I'm living in the moment, and it's fucking great. And we cut back to the future, and everybody who was just kind of holding their breath, waiting to be like blinked out of oblivion during a quantum leap timeline change, realizes that they're all still there and that there's something very wrong.
So, first of all, shout out to the writers. They specifically note that the inertial dampeners were offline during the crash sequence, and that is actually what would get everyone killed in that circumstance.
Turned into goo on the floor, yes.
Second, when they cut back to the future, the Challenger has successfully captured the Delta Flyer, but the Delta Flyer basically pulls a surge maneuver through its warp core, but it causes their warp core to go into meltdown.
That's my complaint for this episode, Joe, is like, if there was ever a time for Chakotay to say, I've got an old Maquis trick, it was right here.
All right, that's your one DKP minus episode. That's the one spot you failed in.
Like Chakotay again was such a great pairing with Kim for this, because Chakotay's got the fuck Starfleet, I'm gonna go do my own thing like resume, and you know, to have the Delta Flyer again shake off a Galaxy class, like Chakotay would be the guy to pull it off. So they blow out the tractor beam, and at the same time they kind of set their own death clock over there. The now co-opted Captain LaForge hails him again and is like, listen, you guys are in some deep trouble. Please drop your shields. Let me beam you to safety.
They say, nah, we're riding this out to the end. And while this is happening, Kim is having a mental breakdown because it didn't work. And this is where Picardo definitely sort of windmill slams over him, because he's losing his shit. He's like, I killed them. I can't stop killing them. Like, all I could do is fail them. He's in that
Why
spiral.
doesn't the math work? And again, we're getting real shades of Year of Hell, because this is Space Boddicker, right? Like everything I do fails. This should work. The math is there. The math is good. I've had 15 years to plan this operation out and check and recheck these calculations, and I still killed everybody again. Time itself is against me. This is unwinnable.
And that's when the doctor has to step up and basically say, grab your nuts and get it together, soldier. There's one man on this ship who can change the time-space continuum, and it's you. And you can have your meltdown some other fucking time, but right now you have people to save. So let's fucking figure this shit out, because we're all going to be dead in 30 seconds. It's great. He just comes right over the top of him and just literally like drill sergeants him and be like, get it together, soldier. It's good. It's a great moment.
Yeah. We cut back over on the bridge. We see Tessa and Chakotay kind of like holding each other, now expecting that they're going to die in this warp explosion. I love seeing the Challenger kind of looming overhead, and seeing like, again, what's traditionally been the Enterprise and like the good guy kind of being like the quasi bad guy in all of this. Chakotay's like, listen, we're going to blow up. You better get to safe distance, because we're going down with the ship. And during that explosion in the back hull, where the doctor's like, listen, you know, if you can't save them, if you can't get everybody home, you can still save them, and kind of like hints at maybe, you know, the only way to win the game is not to play at all. And it gives Harry the idea that it's an experiment that should have never happened. He should never champion the cause, and the right thing to do here is going to be to hit the cancel button.
So I'm going to go for a real deep nerd cut, but it relates to our old hobby. One of the World of Darkness role-playing games is Wraith the Oblivion. And one of the key components of that game is you're playing a ghost, and part of your inner struggle is to resolve why you can't let go of your life so that you can move on to the next stage of existence. And this is like a perfect harrowing sequence where it's like the key is you have to recognize in yourself what you're fucking with. Like, why can't I let go? What am I obsessive about? What can't I let go of? And what he can't let go of is he's trying to get them home still. He isn't trying to save their lives. He's trying to get them home. And then the doctor helps him realize, oh, wait, no, I'm actually trying to save their lives. Getting them home, that's not nearly as important. There's another way through this. And because I'm a huge fan of that game, I like recognize like that storytelling trope in there, and I thought that was really cool. So
I like that. Again, going along the Lon Suter broken goods line, like he's like Captain Ahab, right? And this is his Moby Dick. And that he has been so focused on the math that it's blinded him again to, like you said, the big picture needs to be saving lives, not winning. And it's the same deal, you know, again, back to Year of Hell, was that he was so focused on getting everything to 100%, he realized that the only way to save his wife was to never do anything that he did. So he kind of has this epiphany. He's able to see past his own dysfunction, and they send the message back in time again. And this time, what they do in Cause and Effect, they had to vent the cargo bay.
Yeah, they had to vent the shuttle bay.
Yeah. So he sends the line back to Seven. She's like, "Oh, I just got some communication." Janeway's like, "All right, punch it in." They hit it, and the entire stream falls apart. And everybody's like, "What the fuck?" Janeway calls over to Delta Flyer, which is also dropped out of warp, and she's like, "Dude, what the fuck? You just shit the bed. What was with those coordinates?" And he's like, "I didn't send any additional coordinates over." And then everybody kind of looks up at Seven of Nine, who, if you'll keep in mind, has also in the past like been like, "I don't want to return to Earth," like hopes and fears. But she gets a pass card. There's no treason there. Clearly, it's not her just making up messages from phantom entities.
They conclude the episode, I think, on a great note. Harry's chilling in the mess hall, going over like, how did I fuck this up? How did I go? How did this go wrong? Like what could have happened? And Janeway comes in with a very knowing expression, and I think I think she's seen the entire message. They never say that she did, but I think like that's why she has
She'd
like the
have
whole
to.
demeanor she has.
Yeah.
She has that demeanor, and comes in and explains like, yeah, so Seven of Nine discovered that it was your security code that sent it, and there was a message attached to it that we think is from the future. It's hard for us to know exactly, 10 or 20 years and all of that, and is trying to explain this to him. And it's clear like she is so like, this kid, whatever the fuck happened, this kid spent the next couple decades trying to save our lives. And like she's so proud of him, like you get that vibe of like, oh man, like I've done good with you, like you really are fantastic, like good job. And he's not obviously seeing it, he's not getting it. And she tries to impart like, we don't have to know exactly what happened, but what we do know is that you're the one that came through with us for us somehow to prevent something from happening, and then leaves them the message. And it's the message we saw future Harry Kim finish recording previously, which was essentially, hey man, if you're listening to this, it means I fixed the mistake you made, and this is your second chance. You owe me one, is how it ends.
Lots of broken rules here.
Oh yeah.
Lots of broken rules from Harry. Lots of broken rules from Janeway. I don't know. I enjoy the scene. I love the episode. I think there's a lot of different ways that they could have had this final scene play out. I don't know if this final scene was really even necessary. It's a good scene because the acknowledgement, the discovery that Harry Kim time traveled to save the crew prevents this from actually becoming a bottle episode.
Yes,
right?
That's what I thought was great. That it's not a full bottle because there is this connection.
There's
that
continuity,
they know what happened. Yes,
right, and that was the biggest thing we held against Year of Hell, and we conjectured that there should have been a way for people to somehow find it, and they've corrected that in this one. They could have had Janeway just come by and say, "Hey, listen, don't beat yourself up. We'll get him next time, Tiger." And then her watch or reflect on the message that was sent and knows that she needs to keep it to herself because whatever. She even has a good, line in there. And she's had good lines and she's had bad lines regarding time travel. Sometimes she's all about time travel. Other times she fucking flat out lies and says, like, I try to stay as far away from time travel as possible. But she hits a nail on the head when she says, the one thing I can tell you about time travel and temporal paradoxes, because, they give a little wink, wink, nudge, nudge to it. And it's your goddamn movie Looper, where she's like, listen, don't even bother trying to figure this shit out. What works temporally this time isn't going to be the next time. The only way to understand temporal paradoxes is just to not even try to understand it, which is the right answer for TV writing. But yeah, all the rules get broken. He gets the message from himself in the future. He knows. The two big thoughts I'm left with at the end of this is one, this may have effectively tied yesterday's Enterprise as my favorite time travel episode of Star Trek.
Nice. That's high praise.
And I mean, as far as like quality and everything, like God, it edges right up there. I mean, this is easily the best Voyager. And we got another 2 seasons to go or whatever, but I will be very surprised if they're able to tell a story that so greatly encapsulates so many of these characters and has a genuinely compelling story that I do not know how it resolves. I would have never thought by the end that he was going to get this fucking a message from himself on that. Like that's crazy.
It's a great button, and the fact that she decides to break all these rules and let him see the message, I think, just makes perfect sense for the situation. And everything that I like about this episode, I think I like most Janeway being like I am so proud of this kid. Like this, like I want to say like proud mom moment might be, the right way to phrase it.
Yeah, we find out also too that the couple of seconds they did spend in the slipstream still gives them a 10-year bump, and that's a big deal. The only other time that they've gotten a 10-year bump was Kesko and like
Super Saiyan, yeah,
oh god, and throwing them in the future, throwing them across the galaxy, which completely cleared them of Borg space. So, check that box that Voyager's actually making progress by means of their own actions. That's exciting. I don't know what's going to happen with the Harry Kim character, but the note we ended on, the threshold that Harry has now crossed where he sees what his eagerness has done. Like there's no questions left for him. It's I knew what I wanted to do. I know what I convinced the captain to do. I saw my failure and I know that I killed everybody. And the only reason that people are still alive and I do not have this terrible guilt is because I broke like the most sacred Starfleet rules. So if he were to not return to homeostasis, if there was to be genuine character growth, I think this is the right time that they should have sprungboard him into a serious character who now has serious emotional baggage. As if, dying in space and some of the other bad shit he's gone through wasn't enough. Like this is, in my mind, how like you have an origin story of like a super villain, not a super villain, but like a super scientist who is amoral, and gets that dark edge.
It is a uniquely Voyager tale, and that's why I think I like it as much as I do. It's not an episode you necessarily could have done on TNG,
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's what makes it special, and that's why I think it's such a good entry of this show in particular, is that because of what we know about these characters and because of what we know about their experiences and because of their very familial atmosphere, because they are so isolated, that it isn't to me at all an exception that they would be like, fuck the rules, fuck this bullshit, I'm getting my people home or I'm saving their lives, and I don't care what rule I have to break to do it.
Yeah. And again, I think that would have been a great mindset for him to carry forward. It says, I've already broken the rules. I'm already living in sin. I'm already a fucking quantum double. Like it's time. I don't want to say for evil Harry, but for like business Harry to emerge. And I'll be curious to see if any of that ends up bearing any fruit down the line.
All right. On that note, my friend, what do we watch next week?
Probably something that isn't even a quarter as good as this. So, we might want to just think about making this the last episode of our Voyager review and just
let's hang it up. Well, it's like can't get any better than this.
Season 5, episode 7, Infinite Regress, and we see the conference room. People just sitting around looking over their shoulder. Voyager comes into contact with Borg technology that causes 7 of 9 to display multiple personalities. Wow, this sounds fucking terrible. I hate multiple personality disorder. Also, do not want, man.
I'm happy to tell you that it's actually one of the episodes that I like the most. It's definitely not like I would say like quote unquote one of the best, but it's a great way to use 7 of 9 and tell a story about her, and also actually like adds in some of the there are consequences for your actions moments that we have so craved.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to leave you with some hope. This is actually good. Also, it's probably like Jerry Ryan's best acting performance on the whole series, maybe second best.
So let me tap back into that BA I have in psychology real quick. Multiple personality disorder, also known as a DID, dissociative identity disorder. the late 90s, well, it was more early 90s, there was this hotbed of incorrect diagnostics. Like true MPD is incredibly rare. And it was like super in vogue for a while there for everybody and their mother to give their clients DID assessments. And you had a lot of that stuff popping up in popular culture. And it's curious to see that Voyager was not excused from that and that they're going to end up with their own multiple personality episodes. So
at least they do it in a sci-fi explanation. It's
sure.
not, you know, like it is, the premise is the whole one person as many people thing, but it's done in a science fiction way rather
and it's
than
not
like
going to be that terrible
way.
It's not going to be that terrible episode of TNG where Data has a mask that makes him talk in silly voices.
That's true. Wasn't that from the 7th season or something?
It was called Masks. It was really fucking bad. Like it was so bad I completely forgot about it until I saw it like browsing around Wikipedia, and I was like, man, I made myself forget about that one. But you know, he wasn't in a skin tight outfit. I will say, LaVar Burton, I did see that shot you did of 7 of 9 laying on the fucking what is it where you put people on the wall, the dead body bed. Mm-hmm. I did see you put that camera right at boob level to maximize that silhouette from a top down. I see what you did there.
But hey, even in LaVar's redemption, the man has limits.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm glad those limits are there because I did enjoy that shot. So fuck you.
And speaking of limits, we've reached our limit of talking about Timeless. But please join us next week. We'll be happy to have you, and see you then.